What if there were a Bible movie that was as powerful as The Prince of Egypt and as fun as Tangled? That's about as likely to happen as David beating Goliath. See what I did there? Well, it's happening. We are making an epic David and Goliath animated film. David will be an animated feature film that shows the power of the David story with the humor, music, and adventure of your favorite animated movie. With your investment, we can bring David to life with the production quality of a classic animated film while revealing God through one of the Bible's most powerful stories.
Did you see that? Anyone!
A group of filmmakers in South Africa called Sunrise Animation Studios has been carefully assembling the right team to make David. This David project has already generated $19 million in investments and inspired some of the world's leading animation film professionals to leave major Hollywood studios and be a part of this story. The Sunrise team includes senior contributors to movies like Moana, Monsters, Inc., Soul, and Big Hero 6. As well as Grammy Award-winning composers. Basically, David is the answer to the question, what if the best Bible stories were told by the world's best animators and musicians? Click the link to learn how to invest in David today. David tells the story of a young shepherd who gains fame as a musician and a warrior for the king.
I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine.
He shows the viewer what it truly means to be a man after God's own heart. David is the original underdog that has gone on to inspire the greatest underdog stories of all time. Don't believe me? Just re-watch Harry Potter and Star Wars. Instead of using magic or the Force to defeat giant villains, David uses the power of God to overcome a literal Goliath. And he reminds each of us that we're the underdog of our own stories. And through God, all things are possible. David's story has never been told on a cinematic level. And to accomplish that, you need a combination of a good budget and good storytellers. The faith community has the right storytellers, but most independent Bible films look like independent Bible films. But with your investments, combined with the storytelling prowess of Sunrise Animation Studios, we are finally telling David's story in a way that belongs on the silver screen. And, did I mention, it's a musical? So beautiful. The creation of David the movie is a Goliath-sized story. Sunrise knew that in order for a small film studio to make an epic movie on par with the big boys, they'd have to nail it between the eyes, pun intended. And after all these years, they've assembled the right team to go the distance. All that's missing is you. Click the link to watch a small teaser we made for David. David will be distributed by Angel Studios, the same film studio behind the smash hit success The Chosen, a TV show about Jesus that has over 300 million views and has generated over $100 million in revenue. Sunrise Animation Studios created Jungle Beat, an animated brand that has a feature movie on Netflix with a sequel in production and gets 140 million monthly views on YouTube. If they can do that with a monkey and an elephant, imagine what they can do with one of the most iconic figures of all time. When you invest in the animated film David, you're not just helping to create an epic animated adventure based on one of the most popular books of all time. You could actually share in the profits. Of course, we can't guarantee that you'll make a Goliath amount of money, but we will say The Prince of Egypt made $218 million in revenue at the box office, plus 2 decades of DVD, TV, and streaming sales. David has everything The Prince of Egypt has, like powerful songs and breathtaking animation. And one thing it doesn't, this baby lamb. You do the math. And aside from the potential financial return, bringing such an important story to life can be incredibly rewarding.
Hi there, my name is Phil Cunningham, and I was inspired by this character and thought if we could tell an animated feature film around the life of David, it would inspire people to take on the giants in their life and to live bigger, braver, bolder lives.
David has the chance to be the next big movie that every kid, parent, and Pixar fan will fall in love with. Click the link and invest today. What if there were a Bible movie?
Hi everyone, welcome to this live stream of David. We're talking about David, an animated feature film. My name is Phil Cunningham, and I'm one of the directors on the movie. Tonight we've got some really exciting things we're going to talk about and dig into. But firstly, I just really wanted to welcome the Aaron Fullen fans. And Aaron, for your fans, obviously David's story is one which is incredibly linked to music. We know he wrote half the Psalms in the Bible. He was an incredible songwriter, an incredible singer. So that's obviously close to your heart. So Aaron, to you and your fans, welcome to this live stream. It's so good to be connecting with you guys. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this journey and this live stream to see where it goes. Tonight, we've got 6 days left to go. When we started this campaign, we did a testing the waters campaign, a pledging campaign. And with that overwhelming interest we got from people pledging, we took the decision to go ahead to our first round of fundraising, trying to do a $5 million phase now this year. And it's going so well. We've got 6 days left. And one of my goals tonight would be to see if we can push the needle and raise $20,000 on this live stream tonight. Always nice to have a goal and be competitive. So if we can set that as a goal, that's one of the things for tonight. And if you want to get behind the movie and invest, the way you do it is you go to angel.com/David, and then it's easy from there. You just follow the instructions and obviously read what's there. The other thing we're going to be talking tonight about is our perks. For every level of investment, we've got a different level of perks. So we're going to lay that out for you guys. And tonight, the main theme is storytelling is incredibly difficult. And David's life is this epic life. It covers so many, it covers decades, obviously. It covers multiple characters. And it's beautiful and it's complex and it's full of God and full of being what it means to be human. And so the question is, thanks, Sherry, for the $250 pledge already. That's awesome. Thank you for kicking us off tonight. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to be talking about how to craft a story, and also David, a story on David. And also we know David he's such a well-loved character. So how do we tell a story that's inspiring and entertaining, but is authentic and that people will really believe is based in authenticity and rooted in the historical account in the Bible. So that's another thing we'll be talking about, how we've tackled that and how we're going about that. The other thing I want to say, if you've got questions, love questions. So we'll have a little Q&A at the end. Please just pop your questions in the Facebook link. And as we go, the guys curating the show will give us the questions at the end. So that's good. And if you could like, comment, and share this link, we just want to try and get cross-pollinated as much as we can as we go. So just to kick off, we're going to dive into what are the perks we're offering. And we think we've come up with some really awesome perks that go with each level of investment. So we're going to kick off with a little slideshow, and I'll just talk you through each perk. So the smallest amount you can invest is $100. And for that, you're going to get regular newsletter updates. And obviously, you're also part of the family, part of the adventure. And you from there, we move together on this beautiful adventure. Then the next amount is $250, if I'm not mistaken. And for there, you'll get a streaming credit roll mention. So if the movie is streamed through a streamer or through an AVOD platform, you'll be in the credit roll for that if you invest $250 or more. Then we're going to move to $500. And if you invest $500 or more, you'll be in the full credit roll mention in the cinematic release. So that's the perk for the $500 or more investment. And then we move on to the $1,000 or more. And there we're going to give as directors. And later on the show, Brent Dawes is going to join me, the other director on the show. And then we'll be doing quarterly video updates with the producers. So that's what someone invests $1,000 or more, that's what they'll get. And by the way, I should just comment before we move on, as we move up the perks, all the previous perks flow with this perk. So in other words, someone invests $1,000, they also get the feature film credit roll as well, if that makes sense. So we're going to move on to the next perk, which is $2,000. Sorry, and there you're going to get a director's cut of the trailer. And then we'll move to $5,000, and that's the next one. And here you're going to get a signed film poster by Brent and myself, the two directors. And then the next amount is $10,000, if I'm not mistaken. This one I love. At the end of the project, whoever's invested $10,000 or more, we're going to give a signed copy of the script, which I think is going to be such a collector's item. And it's really, everything comes off story and everything starts with the script. So that foundational bit of this David movie is embedded in that script. And I think that'll be a little gem to have as a perk. And then the next amount we're going to move up to is $20,000. We're going to create this beautiful behind-the-scenes book, which we've already got, by the way, we'll get onto this later in the show, but we've already invested $19.6 million in this movie. And there's an incredible body of artwork, environments and character artwork. So this behind-the-scenes book is going to be full of how the movie was made and behind-the-scenes beautiful artwork. And it's going to be an absolute coffee table gem. So moving on to the next perk. which is $50,000 more. Oh, here we're going to select, like in the background here, you can see one of the artworks behind where I'm talking, but we're going to actually print a beautiful canvas and sign it. So that's something that can go up on the wall, one of the original pieces of artwork. And then we move on to the next perk. And $100,000 more, this is where it gets really interesting. If someone invests $100,000 more, they're going to get an associate producer credit, because that's a huge contribution to this journey and this movie. And we would just really like to acknowledge those people, and they'd get an associate producer credit, which is really hard to come by in the movie industry. So I think that's a cool perk. And then the next one is $300,000 more. For here, we'll actually give an EP credit, which is like hen's teeth in the movie. Well, it's very hard to get an executive producer credit, but $300,000 is a really huge, significant contribution to make this film go forward. So that's what we'd be willing to do for someone who does that. And then we're going to go up to the last perk. I think there's one more, if I'm not mistaken, or I think that could be, oh yes, of course, there's the $500,000 more. And there, besides all the perks already mentioned, someone who invests $500,000 or more would get an invitation to the world premiere, which I know is going to be an epic event. So it's a long way off, because animated films take a long time to make. Just so you know, like a lot of your Disney Pixar movies, they take 3-4 years in production. We've been in production, well, it's been in our minds for 20 years, but we've been in production already for a year and a half, and there's a good 2.5 years still to go on the project. So, but that world premiere is going to be such an epic event. And Levin from CA, thank you for investing that $250. That's awesome. And every investment just moves us forward. So thank you so much for that. Right, we're going to move on. And I'm going to talk, if you want to support the movie, I'll keep reminding you during the show, you can go to angel.com/David. And we obviously need resources. I don't love talking about the money side, but obviously we need resources to make this movie. We're trying to make a movie that's going to compete with movies like Tangled, Frozen, Moana. We really are aiming high with this movie, as you'll see. But today, the heart of today, and what we're going to be talking about, is storytelling, and how we take this incredibly iconic and precious character to so many people around the world and do it justice. And and how do you pack all of that into one film and really come up with this beautiful, entertaining, fast-moving product or story that will engage people and change their hearts, which we'll get to, or inspire them, if I can say that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Brent Dawes onto the show with me. He's the other director of the movie. So Brent, you can join me. Hey, Brent, welcome.
Just like that. Thank you.
And Brent, by the way, has had a long journey with Sunrise. He actually started on the first animated feature film ever made in Africa called The Legend of the Sky Kingdom. And Brent, if I can just quickly tell the story, it's stop frame animation, and it's incredibly tedious. And Brent was the animator, and he took a vow, if I can call it like a Samson vow, at the beginning of the movie. He cut his hair as short as mine, and he said, I won't cut it again until the movie's finished. And then by the end of that movie, he did look like Samson. He had hair down to his shoulders. So just to give you a sense of how long animation takes. But
did you want to say quite something? As well as Samson's, but but I did end up with long hair.
It wasn't quite as strong as Samson. But the other thing about Brent, just for those of you who want to go check out a bit of his work, he was the creator behind Jungle Beat, our brand, which is on YouTube. We've got over 7 million subscribers on that YouTube channel. So Brent was the mastermind behind that and kicked that off. Obviously, there's a lot of other creative people involved, but he was the original creator. And then Brent also directed Jungle Beat, the movie, which is showing on Netflix right now, and it launched in March this year.
And what you mean to say is the worldwide smash hit sensation Jungle Beat, the movie.
Exactly. That's what I'm just getting to. But on a serious note, it was in the top 10 on Netflix in the USA for 14 days of live action and animation. So it's a beautiful little movie. And we're excited to move on to this. But Brent, in terms of storytelling, I thought what I would like to do is actually show, just for those of you listening, we created a demo, which was proof of concept for this movie for a couple of reasons. Human animation is incredibly hard to pull off and do well. And we wanted to really prove that we could do that. We also wanted to flex our muscles in the storytelling space with David. So what we'd like to do now, and then Brent's going to talk a lot after this, and I'm going to be quieter, but we're going to go and watch the David demo, which is 5 minutes long. And then after that, I'm going to ask Brent a few questions that are going to lean into the storytelling and pull out some examples from that demo, which will then take forward into our chat about the actual film itself. So maybe we can switch and take 5 minutes and watch this demo. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. 할래니 נפשי ישובב ינחני במגע לצדק למען שמו.
And at this
Thanks
point,
so much for...
I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump in because at this point, everyone who watches says, "Oh, I want to keep watching," which is a great thing. Sorry, Phil, you're going to say something.
No, that's fine. I was going to say, obviously, so much work goes into making it beautiful and the characters and the design. But what I want to tee up for Brent, or to talk about Brent, is story. So Brent, just quickly, Brent's and my passion is when we tell a story, when we're making a movie, is to entertain and inspire. And we believe it's incredibly hard to inspire someone if you don't entertain them. Like if the story is not exciting and not magnetic. Isha, thank you. There's $100 investment. Thanks so much. We really appreciate that. And Danilo, thank you so much. And Benjamin, thanks, Benjamin. Really appreciate it. Like these are all count. And Hilda, thank you, guys. And for the $500 pledge, for the $500 investment, I can't remember off the top of my head what the perk is, but I'm sure you can remember from the live stream. Yeah, you get some good stuff. I just quickly wanted to say, and Brent, maybe you could just talk about the storytelling process. So we want to entertain and therefore inspire. And if we tell a useless story or boring story, or it's just not funny and engaging, we're not going to inspire anyone. So talking about this demo, there's a couple of challenges. How do you entertain, and how did you see about that? And then also your journey, Brent, about this story and talking about how you spoke to Glenn Keane and had that chat with him about, I'm going to not steal your thunder, but you started off with a certain script. Right. Maybe you could describe how that script evolved, how that script evolved into what people finally saw now.
Yeah, so as a headline, just to speak to what Phil was saying, we were actually talking about this yesterday, that so Phil said the two words is entertain and inspire. And the truth of the matter is that the David story inherently is a good story. And that's why it's lasted, 3,000 years. Like stories that are timeless, that have got themes that resonate with the human spirit, they last. And so the truth of the matter is David is, in and of itself, is an amazingly captivating and entertaining story. It so happens that it is a story about a person of faith, and that is his, that's kind of his gift. But if we as storytellers and movie makers sort of put faith first, then we're sort of preaching. The faith aspect is going to come out in the story because it's woven into the very fabric of who David is and his story and his journey. So what we're trying to do is we're going to taking that story and we're just going to try and make it as fun, entertaining, engaging as it can be, staying as true as we can to the spirit, and the inspiration will come through. And I think as I talk through how we got to this demo, I'm hoping you'll see a little bit of how that happened. So the demo that you just watched was actually, I believe, draft 22 of the script that I wrote for that. It was a real effort and a journey to get there. And we had to let go of a lot of amazing stuff to get to the demo that you're watching. So the original one actually had started with David climbing a cliff face, and he had a full-grown sheep on his back that he was rescuing. And he kind of gets stuck facing the wrong way with the sheep chewing on a bush that's on the cliff behind him. So he's kind of like stuck there. And Jonathan, Saul's son, comes along with a troop of bedraggled soldiers, and they spot David up there. And David's like, is just chilling up there. He's not too fazed about what's going on because he knows that God's going to protect him. Jonathan and David have a bit of an interaction. Then David ends up falling with the sheep, and he turns mid-air so that he takes the fall, not the sheep. All sorts of things, and he inspires David, and he inspires Jonathan and his men, and then the sheep sort of carries David away. And it was really cool on the paper, but when we storyboarded it and started watching it, like the staff and the crew were like, we don't get him. We don't understand why he would do that. He just seems like to be unfazed by life or anything like that. So we tried a number of things, and then we tried a scenario where Jonathan helped rescue him and shot arrows in the rock, and he climbed up like, Flynn Rider climbing up Rapunzel's tower, all sorts of things. Then we were like, this is probably like 3 or 4 months of storyboarding, and it was like, okay, I think I've got it. And we've got an amazing friend of the project. He's not involved in the project in any capacity, but Glenn Keane, who's the legendary Disney animator, who animated Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. We managed to make friends with him right at the start of the project, and he really got a heart for it. Amazing heart, and a wonderful Christian man. And he just of his own accord would reach out, "How are you doing?" And I would send him something, and I sent him that the story of where we were up to, and he wrote back such a wonderful and hard to read crit of what we'd done. It was one of those things that he's sort of saying, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" But in such a loving way, and you couldn't deny that what he was saying was true. He's like, "Brent, why do you need Jonathan? Why do you need this army? You're trying to tell, in 5 minutes, you're trying to introduce people to David. Use the time to introduce them to David." And so I mourned the loss of all the fun and games that we had with the soldiers and everything, and I started focusing on David, and then we started to find the story. And one thing that I can say as an overall is another guy that worked with us, Aaron Adams, said very early on, he says, if you have an agenda, if you've got an idea of the message that you're trying to come across when you start the story, he said, then that's propaganda, because you know what you're trying to say and you're going to force the story to say that. He said, let the story reveal itself to you. Let it show you what it wants to be. And that was an incredibly scary, but also very freeing thing. And so we started to do that and started to really hone in, okay, who is David? What do we, yeah, so go ahead, Phil.
No, just talking to that point and let you carry on is very quickly. I love that because we know in Acts it describes David as a man after God's own heart. I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart in Acts 13. So if we just tell a story that's true to David, that will flow out of the story. It'll authentically come out of the story and reveal God's heart if you do that. Rather than trying to overly engineer it, if you're just true to the story and the character, it's going to come out. But sorry, Brent, carry on. I interrupted you.
No, that's good. Yeah. So with what Phil is saying is, as we were sort of honest and true to trying to find the right story, to keep pressing in, to keep refining, to keep looking, to keep listening to comments, a man after God's own heart was revealed in his actions, in the way that he operated, and there was something really beautiful that happened, which I don't want to share now because it's a bit, I'll spoil it, but it's a wonderful thing, and it's when a story can have multiple layers, that even as a filmmaker, you learn a lesson or you see something that you hadn't seen before, then you're operating in the right zone. And so one of the breakthrough moments for me was just having this idea of him starting with target practice, which was just a great way to tease our audience, thinking, "What? We're going straight to Goliath?" And then no, and we reveal that no, he's just a kid out in the fields with his sheep, and I really wanted to make sure that he felt like that. He didn't feel like a superhero or anything like that. He just felt like someone out there tending his sheep, having fun, and then through the demo, slowly start to see his relationship with God and how that impacts and affects him, and also how it already has molded who he is. Because Phil keeps talking about how Phil first met God out in the wilds in Africa, in the vast expanse, sort of seeing this incredibly adventurous, dynamic. I hope I'm still live because it went blank. Okay, we came back. Okay, we're back. Likewise, I believe that's where David found God as well. He spent so much time out in nature that he witnessed and observed the Creator and just got a living relationship with him. But he was still a kid. He wasn't a wizened prophet or anything like that. He fell over, he made mistakes, whatever, but his heart was what God found in him. So we've lined up a couple of clips which I'd like to play, and then I'll talk about little moments, and then I'm going to get to the key revelation that I got through this, and we'll get there soon. But maybe, guys, you could play that first clip for me. So this is when Talia's first fallen off the edge. He sort of just instinctively reacts and runs, and he's concerned, he's worried, he's not sort of thinking about God at this point or whatever. And if you can just pause here for a sec. With everything that's going on, now the lamb's mother comes along and she's starting to panic. He takes the moment to be still, to look at her in the eyes and say, I've got this, you can trust me. You can maybe just play it through. Despite the fact that his heart is racing and what have you, he's just got an inherent understanding of leadership, to make sure that the situation is contained. It's like, I've got this. He's got an inherent trust, I believe, in God, that God's going to have him. So he's able in that moment to go from being like quite a panicked, a bit scared, to calm and resolute, just to help someone else who's panicking, which I just think is a really lovely moment.
And on that brief, Brent, if I can comment, there's so much detail that comes out in the story, like even the way he's holding her with his right hand, like holding her gently, and his other hand on her neck. It's like a very comforting, just gesture. And he's looking you in the eye, like you're saying. It's just beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really wanted to make sure that you felt like David knew his sheep. It's not just a flock of sheep. He knows them by name. He knows their characters, in the same way that God would know each of us. And then if we can go to the next clip, please. Okay, and then we can just pause anywhere here, I think. So now this, I was going to wait for a little bit later, but this is where it was revealed to me while we were telling the story. I was like, wow, there's an absolute parallel going on here. And maybe it's obvious to those who watch, but it wasn't obvious in the writing, that David is the shepherd. One of his lambs has fallen off a cliff edge and is in danger. So he is going to go down to save him. David himself slips and falls and is stuck on a cliff edge and is in danger. God is our shepherd, and God shows up for David in terms of ministering to his spirit, gives him a peace that passes understanding, so that he is able then to go ahead and in the physical save the sheep that he's trying to save. But there's just this amazing layering that's going on here, that there's a physical shepherd trying to save a sheep, and then you've got God the shepherd looking after David, which is just so wonderful. And again, I said it the other night, but the brief to the animator was, okay, so David goes from scared and concerned to having the peace that passes understanding come over him. And I think they just did such an amazing job of bringing that moment to light. This is not the Prince of Egypt, where God shows up in a pillar of fire, or speaks through a donkey or anything like that. This is David now looking out at the nature where he met God and knows, and finding courage and strength and peace from that. And if we can keep going a little bit, I'm not sure if this clip continues.
Just to talk to that very quickly.
Maybe let's just pause there a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just growing up like you're talking about in Africa, and having the incredible privilege of growing up in the wild. Like, I personally had a few experiences like that, where there were moments. I can remember one where we were in Mana Pools, which is the Zambezi River, and there was like a lion charging us. And in that moment, you can feel the adrenaline, but looked up and saw a very similar view to what David saw there, just this epic sky, like it was near the end of the day, and felt like God's peace come over me. And it was like, oh, wow, like I can do this. Because the worst thing you can do with a charging lion is run. So the instinct in you is to run, but when you feel God through nature and you see His grandeur, like it did something. Yeah, so just say I think that's what you were describing earlier, where David connected with God out in the wild, and that's where he learnt about God, and you could see the artist's fingerprints in nature. He could see God's fingerprints, and that's where he learnt about the artist, if I can say that. Yeah.
That was a great time for you to be talking because my screen just froze and I got booted out and I came back in and you were just wrapping up. So wonderful. I don't know what you said, but I'm sure it was amazing.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So just to speak about this, the moment that's about to come up here, in terms of the story development process, for the whole, for all of the drafts of the script, I had David with a sheep on his back, and he falls off the cliff with the sheep. And a couple of the guys took me for lunch, and they're like, "Brent, we're just not feeling it. We're just not feeling it." And they're like, "What if? He actually saves Tali and manages to climb up." And they're like, "But what if he drops her? You know, what if he's got her?" And she actually falls. And as they said it to me at the table, my heart went, but and it was instant for me. I was like, oh, that's what we need to do to do for the audience, you know, is because what do you do if a sheep falls? But because he's been so centered at that moment, he is committed to saving his sheep. There's no doubt in his mind about what he's going to do. He's already found his peace, and he's like instinctively goes after it because that's his job. It's basically, if I was to put that in dialogue, and actually I think this was a line of dialogue, which was one of the processes as well as taking stuff out, which said, it's my job to protect the sheep, it's God's job to protect me, and that's basically what he's living out here. Which was just again another turning point for us in terms of ratcheting up. And yes, I know that this is too high, and he would likely die in real life, but this is animation, and it's just makes it so much more dynamic and fun. And I just love the fact as well. Actually, if you could just go back to that shot there, I really wanted to make so as he's tumbling, we end up with Tali. You know, he's now wrapped Tali up as tightly as he can, and then in the shot with him falling and tumbling, the team sort of said, "No, Brent, we want to see him rolling and tumbling." I was like, "No, I want to be with the one that he's saving, you know, because she is protected. There's all this chaos around, and she's good." And again, to me, that's kind of like a parallel to the way that God could hold you through a tough time. You know that there's chaos, you know that, but he's got you, kind of thing, which I think just came across so beautifully there. And then I think there's one more clip, if we can hop to that one. So there's the mom waiting, wondering what's happened, and despite his ordeal and having to walk all the way back up and around, he's cradled Tali. And again, to me, this is just such a parallel. You know, just pause here for me. Just look how peaceful this little lamb is. You know, she's caused all this problem. You know, in the beginning, she started running that way. He said, "No, don't go that way." He brought her back. She still went that way. She fell. He had to try and get her. She didn't listen to him again, and so she fell off. He risked his life. He saved her. You know, so all of this ordeal has been caused by her, and yet here he is just cradling her, lovingly bringing her back. And again, I think that's just also a parallel of God and the number of times that he will come out after you. And I get sort of teary as that, because it's very relevant to all of us, I think, that message, you know. And there's a moment here that I just love where he's brought her back, and I framed this shot the same. You can pause this here. So this is pretty much the same shot as when David was about to climb down and said, "I'll bring her back to you. I'll bring her home safe." And again, I get teary actually saying it, but she now nuzzles into him, basically, just that trust and that thanks, which is just so wonderful. Yeah, so what's wonderful having made this and having been a part of it is to be able to sit here and talk about lessons that spoke to me, that spoke to us, and that were revealed to us, that we didn't purposefully try and sort of put in for, because we wanted to preach or say anything other. We were trying to just be true to who David was, true to the story, and these moments revealed themselves. And that's how we absolutely are wanting to go about the full feature film. It's not easy. Let me go further. It's hard, but we're willing to do the hard work because it is so worth it. And already we're starting to uncover some amazing things that we didn't know were in that story. But you guys need to go to angel.com/David, invest some money so we can show you the rest.
Dear. Yeah, if you are joining the live stream and you want to support, you can go to angel.com/David. And there's been a few other investments. Nathan, thank you for that $500. Really appreciate it. And Saul, thank you. And there was some that while Brent was talking we couldn't call out, and some nice comments. And Sonia, thank you so much. But Brent, I'm going to dive into another thing. And John, thank you.
Wow, $10,000. $10,000. Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow. Can the curator remind me of the perk for $10,000? Can we just quickly pull up, if you've got it? If it takes too long, don't worry. But if you've got the perk, yeah. But while they're pulling up the perk, the one thing, well, let's just wait for that actually before I dive down a rabbit hole. If we don't find it, don't worry. But thank you guys from $100. So it's all the credit on the feature film, it's the credit on the streaming thing, and then it's the quarterly report, and it's the signed script as well. So thank you so much, for everyone from $100 to $10,000. It's all adds up.
And you've just heard how much work is going to go into that script, so it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, and the one thing for you guys on this adventure with us, it's not a short adventure. I've often said animation is like investing into a fruit orchard. If you take an apple orchard and you put fertilizer and water, it takes 5 years to get your first apple. And if you stop anywhere in that 5 years, you don't get any apples. But if you keep investing, you get an apple orchard, and then you get apples for 20 years. So it's a long adventure we're going to be on together. And thank you for joining us. We're so excited. We've still got, as I was saying at the beginning, this has been 20 years in our imagination, at least a year, 2 years in the making already. And there's another 2, maybe 3 years to go. But we really believe it's going to be a masterpiece. And we wanted to share the demo, just to give you a sense of how much detail goes into it. But Brent, I wanted to dive into one more thing, which is about did you want to say something before I dive into the bigger story? I wanted to say,
we've been at it. So yes, it's been in your imagination for 20 years, but the first draft of the script was written in 2015. We made the demo 2017. And so we got into production of the full feature about a year and a half ago. But we've been actively at this project for 5 years now. So it's not it's a big job. Over.
I wanted to tell one of the challenges we face, and one of the things that also so excites me, is the character of David. Because when you read the Psalms, the one thing I love about David, he is so honest with God, so real. He's so human. And he reminds me, like where Jesus talks about, blessed are the little children, because when David runs to God, there's no filter. He jumps on God's lap and he downloads and he offloads. And so we can see he's just beautifully human, but he's also got such faith in God and God's goodness and kindness. Like a little child's got faith in their parent, that they can say anything to their parent. That's David's relationship with God, which I think is so inspiring. There's something else, though, besides all the complexities of the world around him and all the characters, which Brent, I'll come to in a second. The one thing Brent and I don't want to do is diminish who he was either, because people, sometimes by trying to make someone human, they try and diminish who they really were and say, oh, well, to make him human, we must diminish his story. And the one thing that excites Brent and I want to talk about David's superhuman, not his superhuman, his superpower. And we're going to talk about that in a second. when he went to fight Goliath, what I sensed on that battlefield was such confidence. And he says to Saul, I killed the lion and the bear. Like, when they came, I killed them. This Philistine will be like that to me. And when he speaks to Goliath, I love how confident he says, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, and I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts. And today he goes on to say, I won't say how he says it, but he says, I will defeat you. I will cut off your head and feed you to the birds there. But he was so confident. And what Brent and I didn't want to lose was this incredible character. And it's not to say he wasn't human. And on the cliff face in the demo, you can see that he had moments. And Brent, maybe that's where you could speak, because I think the demo explains that moment on the cliff face speaks to David's, I'm going to call it his superpower. It's obviously not a superpower, but if you could maybe talk to that, and maybe you want to go to Spider-Man's story as well a little bit at this point. It's up to you though. But can you speak to the superpower?
With the story development, we had a lot of great story minds in the room, and they were trying to tease out, okay, what is this? Is this a positive change arc? There's a lot of story speak, and the thing that Phil and I sort of kept bumping up against is like that we need to see David's flaws. We need to show him as a flawed character, and then he goes on this journey, and we don't read that in the scripture. It's like it feels like he's not super flawed to start with. His flaws kind of almost are revealed to us in scripture a little bit later, with once he's king, actually. But actually he does have faith from when we meet him. It's not, we don't see him not having faith, and we don't read in the Bible that he has, when Goliath is coming, he's fearful and he needs to, pray, and he actually fundamentally has faith. And so we came up with this thing. It's like, well, actually, I think we're telling a superhero story here, and David's superpower is faith. That is the difference between him and everyone else on that battlefield that is too afraid to go and fight him, to go and fight Goliath. And it's not a thing for him to be arrogant about or anything like that. It's just a thing naturally that is birthed within him. And certainly in the story, beyond Goliath, that faith gets tested, so we realize, we've got a testing arc here. But we really resisted, and we really feel appropriately, this idea of for story's sake, for the correct way of telling a story, to weaken him as a character up front and make him earn his faith or anything like that. Doesn't mean that he doesn't waver or what have you. And we were talking today about what movies could this be likened to, and immediately Spider-Man came to mind for me, because Spider-Man also, he's Peter Parker, he's a kid at school. Then it's a little bit different in that he sort of now suddenly gets supernaturally bestowed with these powers, but his uncle says to him, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's a little bit what happens with David. He's going about his shepherding, and then suddenly there's this prophet who anoints him to be the next king of Israel, and has now suddenly got this weight of, what am I supposed to do with this thing? He does get it, but it's the reason he's chosen is because he already is a man after God's own heart. Not he gets chosen and then becomes that, which is quite an interesting distinction.
Yeah, and I can remember, what we didn't want to do. No, thank you. What we didn't want to do was dumb it down. I can remember when I was young reading a book about David, and the author had the story of David going out, and there was this jackal fighting the sheep, and he killed the jackal. And I was like, why did you do that? Because he clearly fought a lion and a bear. Like, why did you try and bring it down to the fact that he fought a jackal? Like, there was something clearly, and what I wanted to say is, we live in a world currently that's steeped in fear and doubt, and David was born into a world that was full of fear and doubt. And that's why I think his story, there's a much bigger thing about God. He was a man after God's own heart, but it's also particularly relevant to our generation, because I honestly feel he can inspire. He was different, and what made him different was his faith in God. And I just want to say one other thing that I read in Eugene Peterson's book, Leap Over a Wall, which was about David. And it says, when David came into the valley of Eli, he had a God-dominated imagination, and everyone else had a Goliath-dominated imagination. And I hope that as people watch this film, they switched from having a Goliath-dominated imagination, whatever's the giant in their life, to having a God-dominated imagination. And that's what I hope, that this film will inspire people to lose that Goliath-dominated imagination and switch it out for a God-dominated imagination. Brent, time's kind of ticking along. There's a lot more we can talk about, but I just wonder if, with time being a bit short, if we should see if there's any questions. Otherwise, I've got one or two more questions for you. But let's maybe take 5 minutes on. Okay. Brent, I'll let you answer that. How long did the preview take to make? That's a very good question.
I honestly can't exactly remember, but I think it was about a year to make that 5 minutes. Does that sound about right, Phil? I think it was about 10 months to a year.
So
of that,
story is the
8 months of getting this.
Sorry. I was just chatting to Joe Pastorius, the producer with you on that, and he was saying it was 15 months in total. And a good 8 months of that, as you say, was story, eh? Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into making a film of that quality. It doesn't just happen easily. So we can go to the next question, if there is. Next.
How long did it take to make? Oh, well, you see, it took 15 months. Okay. There we go.
Here's the next one. Tell us more about the movie's logo and the inspiration you had to make it. Oh, that's such a great question, and I'm definitely going to hand over to Brent to answer that, because there's a super cool answer to that question.
Wonderful. I love the question and I love the answer. So I'm presuming you're seeing the logo up there on the screen. If you look at the A of the David there, when we went and did our research in Israel, in a museum there's like a rock or a brick that they found in a building that had some ancient Hebrew inscription in it, and I think it literally was being used as a stone for a building, and it could have sort of been lost to history, but someone noticed this writing and they got it out, and it says on there, in part, they've interpreted it, says House of David, and that's the only archaeological artifact that has the name of David actually inscribed on it, and that letter A is one of the symbols within the name of David in the ancient Hebrew. So our art director at the time, Mark Chittenden, observed that, and he was like, oh, okay, well, he used exactly that shape, and you can see he's flipped it and reversed it for the D. So it's absolutely based off of the research that we did. And then the V, David was the 8th son, so we've got those 3 strands there, which kind of also look a little bit like a lion's claws, but that's kind of like signifies the Roman numeral 8. And also those 3 strands, it's sort of like a graphic representation of David's harp. And so it's just beautiful that that we've got the fact that he calls himself Israel singer of songs. So there's just a nod to that within the logo. And we think it's lovely.
I'm so glad someone asked that question, because there's so much thought that goes into so many little things in the movie, and like we love the detail that went into that logo, but you don't normally talk about it, so thank you. Okay, so I'll answer this if you want, Brent. From Vanessa: is this movie out yet? If not, when is it? And if it has, where can we watch it? So Vanessa, thanks for the question. What we've done so far, Brent was just going back, there's been 20 years in our imagination. There's probably been 5 years of work, a big push in production in the last year and a half. There's still probably 2.5, maybe 3 years of production still to go. So we're anticipating it'll come out if all goes well, in 2024. So it's still quite a way to go. And that demo you saw is obviously that's complete, but that was a proof of concept for the movie. So just to talk a little bit more to this question, there's been $19.6 million invested in the movie to date. We're still raising another $35 million, of which this phase is the $5 million phase of the 35, and then next year we'll carry on. And for those of you who don't know animation, just to say why it takes so long, why these Pixar movies and Disney movies take 3 or 4 years. For every second you see, there's 24 still frames. So if you see me waving like this in real life, if in an animation you've got to do 24 still frames and put them together, And then you've got a composite layer, sometimes up to 50 layers. So you've got the character, the rock, the tree. So it's an incredibly complex and long process, but the result is a beautifully crafted way of telling stories. And why I love animation, even though it takes so long, is because it has the power to cross race, cultural, age, and gender barriers better than any other medium. It's just got this incredible power. So it's a long journey, and it takes a lot of crafting. But when it does come out, it's powerful. And the other thing I'll say about animation, I said it earlier, it's like an apple orchard. If you look at Winnie the Pooh, I think he's 100 years old. I think Paddington Bear's 50 years old. And if we do a great job of telling a timeless story on David, I think this movie will outlast our generation. So it's worth the effort, and it's worth the years of work. Brent, I'll let you read and answer that question, because there's a lot. Cool. It's a long answer, but you can give a...
Yeah, what tools and programs do we use to animate? So in the concept art arena, it's mainly Photoshop and probably ZBrush for a little bit of modeling. Then it's Maya and so I'm going to say Maya, Houdini, and then lots of other bits and pieces, because so we're writing a lot of in-house software as well to cope with things like cloth and hair and stuff like that. But the core foundation, I'd say, is the Maya Houdini pipeline / Photoshop.
Yeah.
Neither of us are really the right people to answer that question, though.
Yeah. How will the origin of... This is the last question for this evening. So how will the origin of David's family be approached in the film? So, Brent, I don't know if you want to grab that question. I mean, I can also dive in, but you...
At this point in time, we're not... So we're aware that there's lineage to... Am I right that it's Rachel, Phil, on Nitzevet's side? Ruth, yeah.
Ruth was great-grandmother.
Kind of yeah. So if that's what you're talking about, the origins of his family and the lineage, that's not really part of the story we're telling. That's almost like canon that the true fan will know exists outside of this movie. We've got 90 minutes, and the challenge that we've really got with this movie is Phil has always wanted to tell from when David is shepherd to when he becomes king. And there's a significant amount in scripture that happens. So we've had to really choose a path carefully. It's like, what is the story we want to be telling about David here? Because is it how he coped with 3 wives? Is that going to be the best use of our time for a family movie, and justifying that? It's not. So we've really had to handpick. And so what we're doing is we're choosing a path of story from being shepherd, and we're finding our way through to the point where he becomes king, and we cannot touch every point of his life, and likewise we can't seed in as much as we'd want to. If we were doing this like Lord of the Rings as a trilogy, then absolutely. But I think that's the sort of thing that we know these things as filmmakers. We were chatting a couple of days ago. One of our art directors on the project, Linton, was talking about was working into the banners for all 12 tribes of Israel, and the amount of effort and attention to detail that is going into that. It's going to be visually represented in the movie, but when you watch it, it's not going to be explained. It's just going to be there. We hope the audience will just feel the richness and the authenticity coming across, much like Lord of the Rings, the way the detail that they went to with writing on clothes and things like that. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that's what I got.
And maybe I can chime in. Is like so much of what we do flows from research. So we've done the 4 trips to Israel, but I just want to say one quick thing to that question. So going back, Ruth was his great-grandmother. There's an interesting place in one of the Psalms in the 80s where David says, "I serve you as my mother did." And I've come from an incredible family where my grandmother was amazing and my mom was amazing. Of course, my dad was as well, but I'm talking to the female side of the family. And the one thing I wanted to do, because we know we've got that lineage coming from Ruth, which is incredibly rich, that would have impacted his grandmother and his mom. And then we really want to paint David's mom as an example, as someone who's an incredible character, who's full of faith, who actually inspires David. She's not just stereotypically overly protective. She's a character who inspires him in his faith and in his life and his love for God. And that comes for me from knowing that Ruth was his great grandmother. So just to say, it does find its way into the film, even if it's not obvious how it got into the film. Yeah, if that makes sense. Brent, I think we should probably wrap up there, because I just want to say a few things to end. Some thanks, but we could talk a lot more. But I think that's a good place to stop. I just wanted to say to those of you who have invested and have just sent massive encouragement, thank you so much. We really can't thank you enough for joining this journey. We are so excited, so passionate, and yeah, just want to say thank you for joining us on this journey. And if I can call it, we look forward to journeying with you through seas. And I love another saying. It says ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what they were built for. And as we sail out of harbor with this movie, I'm so excited to journey with you guys, and thank you for joining us. Just to end off the live stream, we're going to show the demo and another little clip from us as well. So if you'd like to stay and watch that, you're welcome. If you'd like to invest, just to end off, you go to angel.com/David. And yeah, I think we might have even hit our $20,000 target tonight. I'm not quite sure, but I think that one $10,000 investment gave us a massive boost, and we must have been close. So for those of you who joined us, thank you. We really appreciate it, and we look forward. Okay, so we just heard we've got a little bit over 15, which is amazing. So thank you, guys. And we look forward to staying in touch. You'll be hearing from us in the new year with updates, and have a wonderful Christmas when you get there. And yeah, we'll be doing more live streams next week if you want to join. So watch the Facebook page for that. And we will say good evening and good day, and thank you for joining us. Brent, I don't know if you want to say anything to close off.
I would like to say goodbye and thank you. Thank you and goodbye. Ciao.
Thanks, guys. No.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, no! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait. Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there. Okay. killed us. Stop. Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshobeh yancheni b'magalet tzedek leman shemo.
What you have just watched is a concept short or a musical animated feature film on the story of David, and our vision is to tell it in the same quality as movies like Tangled and Frozen. This is more than a movie. This is a movement to join people from all over the world to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.
You can help us make this film by going to angel.com/David to invest today.
Growing up in the wild of Africa was the most incredible experience, and it was there that I bumped into the most amazing character of God and fell in love with him. At the same time, I was reading David's story, and it just really struck me. On one particular canoe trip on the Zambezi River, where you could canoe for days and not see a human being, I was reading the scriptures and I read, "I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." And I thought how amazing it would be to do a film that would give people all over the world a glimpse into God's heart. We grew up on a farm that had no electricity. I only saw my first film when I was 14 years old, and it was such an electric experience. I was blown away by the power of film and the power of story to connect with people and move people. And from that day, I became passionate to tell a story on the life of David. The question is, can a group of farmers from Africa make a global hit that's going to reach the world? This is in and of itself an incredible David versus Goliath story.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And in order to tell a story as big as David, we need people from all around the world to come together.
Over the last 20 years, Jackie and I have just been blown away by how God has miraculously drawn talent to us. Now we have the most awesome, high-quality team.
Like Nathan Stanton, who spent 22 years at Pixar, Jonas Myron, a Grammy Award-winning musician, Borja Montoro, a Disney animation alumni, other talent from massive films like Big Hero 6, Tangled, Finding Nemo, Zootopia, Moana, Prince of Egypt, and many more.
Our first breakout hit is Jungle Beat, an incredible and beautiful show. On our YouTube channel, we get over 2 billion views a year. We've got 7 million subscribers. We also recently released our first animated feature film called Jungle Beat the Movie. And incredibly, it was on Netflix's top 10 for over 2 weeks, both live action and animated feature films in the US. We are also doing a theatrical release of Jungle Beat the Movie in China later this year, and are in production of Jungle Beat the Movie 2. What really excites me is if you take Jungle Beat the Movie, we produced that for $5 million. And I'd really encourage you to go and watch it on Netflix to see the quality of movie we produce for that price. And just imagine the quality of movie we could produce on David with the proper budget. With David, we considered the route of engaging with Hollywood, and there is significant interest down that route. But we really felt that from a creative point of view, we need to stay the head and not the tail of this project. And it's a slingshot, like David went with a slingshot to fight Goliath. We really believe that the strategy needs to be outside the Hollywood system for it to work. In this vein, we are thrilled to be working with Angel Studios for distribution. Angel Studios did the TV series The Chosen, which has become the world's biggest TV series on the life of Jesus Christ. The Chosen has generated hundreds of millions of views and tens of millions of dollars. We've already got $19 million of investments and need another $35 million to complete this project. We need your help to bring God's heart to the world through the story of David.
Go to angel.com/David to invest in this film today.
And let's join together to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.